Hi, welcome back to Oakey Dokey Knits. This is my podcast episode 1, part 2 of the extra long first part. I hope you enjoy. But then after that train season finished, I was like itching to make a garment that I could be like properly proud of, and I was just so excited to do that. I was excited for fall because I'm really like a cool weather girly. Like I love fall and winter. I have opposite seasonal depression, so I have to like fight the urge to feel disappointed that spring's coming and find all the things to rejoice in it and enjoy it like other people do. So I just was itching to make like a oversized, cozy, plushy sweater for when I can be at home this winter, and like, oh, I was so excited. So at the start of the season, oh yes, I really want to talk about this. At the start of the train season, I had bought a sweater's quantity of Arcane Fibre Works sock yarn in the colorway Where the Wind Blows. I have it here. And I was making the Gingerbread sweater by Naomi Endicott and Mona Schmidt. It's from Espace Tricot. Because I wanted to try a raglan construction, and I liked the look of this pattern. I forget if it was free. I feel like it was. And that might have been why I started it. But I gave up on it because it was awkward to travel with. And I just continued making socks. Actually, I decided I'm going to wait to show this sweater in my, other than the little sneak peeks that I've just given. I'm going to wait to show it in the works in progress because it is still a work in progress. And I need opinions about what to do with it. I had that yarn and I had started that sweater, but I really wanted to make something like chunky and oversized and kind of like drapey, heavy. I liked the idea of wide sleeves, so I found the Kleo sweater pattern by Milena Paulina, which Paulina is spelled with 2 I's. So at this point when I was making this sweater, I still wasn't keeping notes, so I don't remember the yarn exactly. I'm pretty sure it was like Barocco vintage worsted or something. It's a wool and acrylic combination, and so it's a slightly better fabric choice, but it's in this like navy colorway. I'll show it. Oh, is it gonna look black on screen? Let's find out. Oh, it smells good. It smells like my perfume. And this fiber choice, it's a little bit of a better fiber choice, but I still went with like an acrylic percentage because it was cheaper than the like full merino or wool or whatever. And I was kind of daunted at spending that much money on like a full sweater quantity of worsted weight yarn. But this is it. This is my Kleo sweater. If I back up, can you see the whole thing? I don't know. Maybe I'll include a picture of me wearing it. But yeah, it turned out great, especially when I first blocked it, because this is my first garment that I ever blocked. I was so proud of it, but I still don't like how the yarn has held up. Kind of because of that like acrylic quantity, it's doing that thing where it wisps off of the fabric. And it doesn't pill so much. Like, yeah, there's sections that do have pilling, like there, I have to depill it. But then there are like these long wisps of like what I'm guessing are acrylic fibers that I don't love. I also did not understand, actually until fairly recently, how much how you store your knit sweaters matters, especially when they're heavy. Because I would hang all my sweaters on a hanger just like this. It was already oversized, but I think now it's just gotten quite stretched out to the point where it's kind of an awkward fit. It's not terrible, but I think it might be cuter if I lengthened it, and I do have more yarn, so I'm considering doing that because this was a top-down construction. If I remember correctly, it's like drop sleeve. So I was into doing like learning different construction methods, like shoulder construction. So, but I do still love it, and I still love how heavy it is. And partially why that is I did like a double folded collar, and I have helped the some of the stretching out by adding elastic into the collar, so now it fits a lot better. But with the sleeves, I made them long and I double folded the cuffs, so it's not as wide as like I was hoping it would be, but it's still quite wide, and like heavy sleeves. I love that. So I might go in and add length to this sweater, and that might make it so that I wear it more often, but it is still like one of my favorite things to throw on. I thought like before it stretched out a crazy amount, it looked really good with skirts, looks good with jeans. Yeah, I like this sweater a lot, and I'm still quite proud of it. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee, which is probably cold by now. Still good though. It's like, I can imagine that it's iced coffee. But so while I was working on my Kleo sweater, I was in Ontario visiting again. I do that every off season, like at the start of every off season from the train. I was visiting my friends, and they wanted to learn to knit because I had previously taught them how to crochet, so they wanted to learn how to knit too. So we went to the yarn shop and bought yarn to make to cast on the Stockholm Slipover together because they wanted to make a sweater vest. So I decided, I looked at the pattern and thought, oh, it's not that complicated. They should be able to do it. This is the Stockholm Slipover by PetiteKnit. I used a worsted weight yarn. I don't know what I was thinking because it calls for a fingering plus mohair, so DK. I figured that I knew enough about gauge by that point that, oh, I'll just compensate for that by using different needles, I think is what I was thinking. Or like making a smaller size, but even still it turned out way too big. I also didn't really know how to do short row shaping at the time. I don't know if what I did is any actual short row shaping method, because I, for whatever reason, didn't bother actually looking up how to do short row shaping. I had done it once previously, but I didn't want to bother looking at the videos. I was like, oh, I'll just remember how to do it, and I didn't. I was like, oh, it'll be fine anyway. So they're not the worst, but like I don't think what I did is like an actual short row shaping method. Like you can see the little bumps along here. It's not that bad actually, now that I'm looking at it again, but maybe it looks worse in person. Yeah, so I loved working on this. I knit it up in like 3 days, I think. Like I couldn't stop working on it because of my yarn choice. Even with the efforts I made to try and compensate for how big it was going to end up, it still ended up way too big. So what I ended up doing, it sat in my like project clothes pile for the longest time, until eventually at some point I had my sewing machine out and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it because I'm sick of not wearing it. Even if I do a crappy job, at least maybe I'll wear it. So I just like brought in I like sewed. I wasn't sure how sewing knitwear was gonna go, but I like sewed or like stitched in the sides. Is it focusing at all? I can't tell. I need to hide my face in order to get it to focus. But yeah, I stitched in the sides or hemmed them in or whatever. And that has helped. It fits better than it did, but it still doesn't fit great. So I do wear it, but not that much. But I definitely want to make it again in the proper yarn. Definitely a project that I want to make again. Oh, and yeah, I might want to try making it as a V-neck because I also have the V-neck version of the pattern. If I was a more experienced knitter or better at doing these things, I might be able to just figure out how to do it based on the round neck pattern, but I just bought the pattern. The next thing that I wanted to learn to do, because I kind of had I guess 3 missions or like things that I wanted to learn this off season. The first one was like, I just want to make like a warm, chunky sweater, like heavy sweater, oversized. Did that. And then the other 2 were that I wanted to learn stranded color work or like fair isle knitting and cables, which I still haven't done, and it's March. So I don't know if I'm going to get to that this off season. I did buy cable needles recently, so we'll see. I might end up doing that. But next thing that I wanted to try was stranded color work, but I felt too intimidated to try and jump right into doing like a stranded color work or fair isle sweater. So I found this pattern called the Cozy Natural Socks by Sandra Designs. And it's so cute. It's got like this really simple pattern here near the cuff, and then the accent color or contrast color ankle or heel, and then it repeats that colorwork motif down at the toe just before the toe decreases. And it's so cute. I loved that pattern, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty simple. I'm going to practice my stranded colorwork on that. So the main color I used, by this time, I started making notes in my journal. So the main color I used is the undyed ecru or ecru, whatever, sock yarn from, again, Arcane Fibre Works. Still my favorite, like, undyed sock yarn. And then the contrast color I used are leftovers from this pair of socks that I made with, this might have been like the first non-Arcane Fibre Works yarn that I purchased, sock yarn that I purchased, and it's called, oh yeah, so I bought it at the, I bought it at the Pike Place Market yarn shop, like the yarn shop that's in the Pike Place Market in Seattle. When I went on a trip, I went on like this big road trip solo after I finished my train season, all through the western states. So when I was in Seattle at the Pike Place Market, I picked up this skein. It's from a local dyer, local to Seattle, called Jadawoo Designs or Jadawoo Designs. And anyway, I'm not sure how to say it, but this is the colorway Blue Spruce. So these were the first vanilla socks that I made that actually fit me and didn't get too small. I made them like longer. And so the way that my socks always go as I wear them is that the foot gets like shrunken in this way, like it gets shorter, and then the ankle gets wider. I guess I have fat ankles, thick ankles or whatever. But yeah, so I loved these socks, still do, love the colorway, or love the like blue, green, teal kind of color, Blue Spruce. Love natural colorway, or inspirations. But yeah, so then I used the rest of that as the, or what I had left of that as the contrast color for these. But for some reason, this sock did not work out. I only have one of them because it didn't work out for a couple of reasons. One is that I didn't yet know that like the colorwork section was going to be tighter if I used the same size needles. So now I know I need to size up on my needles to be able to do the colorwork section, and have it like stretch out properly. And also because for some reason, again, I made them too short. I don't think I was counting rows. I was just following the pattern's recommendation for like how long to make it, I think. Or maybe I just eyeballed it. Anyway, now I know. So I'm gonna undo this one and redo it and have them both because I still think this is really cute. I think earlier I said that the vanilla sock pattern is the only sock pattern I've used. I lied. That was not true. I also love this one, but I haven't found many other sock patterns that I would be interested in wearing because, I don't know, I just love a basic sock and letting the color shine. Having learned a couple of things about colorwork, stranded colorwork, just from doing that, I was ready to move into doing a colorwork sweater. So I decided that I looked at lots of different colorwork sweaters, and the one I settled on was I'm not sure how to say it, but I'm guessing it's the Lumme sweater, or Lumme sweater, or Loom sweater, or Lum sweater, Lumme, I don't know, but I know it's fairly popular. It's by Sari Nordlund. Yeah. This is my Lumme sweater by Sari Nordlund. I love how this turned out. I'm still so proud of it. So with this one, I have more to say because I started taking actual notes. So for this sweater, I used Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in the colors 1042, which is the light gray. And so I used that obviously as my main color. And then I used the color 1001, which is the white, as the contrast color. So I used 9 balls of the gray, and so that's 450 grams, I think. And not quite 3 balls of the white. I think it was supposed to only take 2, but I ended up needing to buy a third one because I didn't have enough. So I used just a little bit of that one to finish up the sleeves. And I made size large, I think the 4th size. So with this one, I did my first gauge swatch. And I mean, the swatch didn't turn out great because I wasn't sure how to swatch for color work. I did it in the round with magic loop, and I found that really awkward, so it didn't turn out great with like trying to carry floats and stuff, catch floats and stuff, but I'm glad I did that because then I learned how to catch floats. I couldn't meet gauge with the recommended needle size, so I ended up having to go 1 millimeter size up for each of the 3 sizes that it calls for. So instead of using 4 millimeter, 4.5, and 5, I used 5 millimeter, 5.5, and 6. I decided to do, I don't think that this is in the pattern, but I decided to do a folded over collar because so far that's my favorite way to do sweater colors. I think it just looks so like nice, neat, and tidy, and I ended up, for some reason, I loved doing this colorwork bit, like the yoke. For some reason, once I finished the yoke, I ended up with 20 extra stitches. So what I had to do, instead of going back and figuring out where on earth those 20 stitches came from, I ended up just adding, I think, 6 extra stitches to each side of the body once I split for sleeves, and then 4 extra to each of the sleeves. And that worked out great, actually. And then, yeah, I just decreased those stitches out of the sleeves, like, right away. And that turned out fine. There's no, like, noticeable, like, weird shape in the sleeves caused by that. I loved working on this sweater. It was so much fun. Now I know that I enjoy colorwork yokes like this, where it's all in different sections, because I'm like, oh, I just want to finish this section. Okay, I just want to finish this section. I want to finish this one. And as it comes together and becomes more of like an image, it's so rewarding and so exciting. I loved working on it. I learned how to do the invisible lift increase for the yoke, because that's what it calls for in the pattern, but I had trouble figuring out, based on the charts, like where to work those invisible lift increases. That could have been the problem, how I ended up with extra stitches. But I think I figured it out. I figured out how to do it. I found that really awkward because it doesn't describe that at all, how that's supposed to work in the pattern. It just says work invisible lift increase. So I found it kind of hard to figure out, but I ended up doing it. I was worried that the color work wasn't gonna look as great as I'd hoped, because I know that it helps to do color work with like a strand of mohair added, or like using a yarn that has more of a halo, because then the stitches of each color are kind of blended together within the color, so that it's not like, I don't know, so it doesn't look so pixelated, I guess, if you think of the stitches like pixels. But like I mentioned, I'm like really sensitive to fibers, and I have yet to try and use a mohair because I'm worried that I'm going to find that super itchy. Any sweaters I have that, like purchase sweaters that have mohair in them, I find way too itchy and like annoying, especially on my neck. I can't wear them. So I just used super wash, single strand, double Sunday, merino, and hoped for the best. And it actually turned out great. I actually have not knit anything yet, as far as I can recall, with a non-superwash merino, with non-superwash yarn, because I'm worried that like I just don't have the patience to wash things by hand. And I really want to be able to put them in the wash, even like on a gentle cold cycle or whatever, but I don't want to have to wash them by hand. So maybe eventually, and I'm also worried I might find them too itchy. So anyway, maybe someday I'll try it, but so far I haven't. I am a big fan of my choice. I'm glad I made this choice despite what I'd been reading online and seeing on YouTube. To when doing stranded color work, to do like really bold, high contrast colors so that it'll show up enough, because I can totally understand how disappointing it would be to knit a color work section and not be able to really tell that there's color work there, or not have it really stand out. But I'm not someone who likes wearing bold contrast items. I think because I have like dark facial features, I don't like having, like, that's already pretty high contrast, and so I don't like wearing something that's also high contrast that's going to pull away from my face. I want to wear something that's like lower contrast, so that, yeah, that looks really pretty and you can tell that there's a design there, but like it doesn't take away from my face. So yeah, I like the choice I made. I think it's like a really perfect medium contrast, or like even kind of low contrast. I don't know. Anyway, I'm quite happy with the choice I made. Oh yeah, I really like that there's this colorwork motif on the sleeves, or like another colorwork section on the sleeves, because I often get bored trying to work the sleeves to finish a sweater up. If it's just like, oh man, I just want to get these done and finish it. But these had the little reward of this colorwork section on each sleeve. That made it exciting to work on all the way through. So yeah, I really like that it had that, and I like how they turned out. I had a scare, and I'm trying not to be sad about it because it didn't turn out as bad as it could have, but like it still changed the garment, affected how it's going to be permanently. I don't think I had ever washed this because it wasn't dirty, didn't smell, it smelled great, but then I accidentally spilled something on it. So I put it in the wash, and I accidentally forgot to change the setting to cold wash. So it washed it with hot water, and when I took it out to hang it to dry, it was like somewhat shrunken and felted. Like it was not this, like, I will say it has helped make the colorwork look more cohesive, but like it did not look that way before. It has definitely felt it in the colorwork sections, and I was so heartbroken when I discovered that, and so mad at myself. I couldn't believe that I'd done that. So I wore it a couple times after that, and the fit was obviously different. I didn't like how it fit anymore by that point. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna put it through a cold spin cycle and block it again, wet block it again, and kind of stretch it out vertically, because it had shrunk up. You can't really tell, but it had shrunk up, not that high to the bottom of my breast, but like it was like above the waist of my jeans, and because it's a circular yoke, it also like stuck out on the back, and like it flared out on both sides, and I hated the shape of it. So I was like, I have to fix this. So I wet blocked it, stretched it out a little bit longer in the torso, and that really helped. And so the fit is now, I don't think the fit is what it was before I did this, made this mistake, but it's back to being like wearable. Like I don't mind the fit of it now. I think it's still good. So yeah, if anything, I'm kind of happy that it felted the colorwork a little and made it a little bit more cohesive and like blended, but yeah, I now know to be so careful to make sure that I do not put my sweaters through the wash with hot water. The collar was also doing that weird thing where it was kind of, or it was, I think because it shrunk, and it must have shrunk, like the colorwork section shrunk up and felted somewhat. The collar wasn't really affected, but it was still the same size. So it kind of like stuck up and flared out almost like around my neck, like it stood up all the way around. And I didn't like that. So I added elastic to this collar too, and that actually really helped. It kind of fixed it, and the collar's back to normal. After I finished that sweater, I kind of started doing a whole bunch of accessories. So the first accessory I made is I made these World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits. And I did it in KnitPicks Twill in the color Crabapple red. And it was my first time, was it my first time doing magic loop? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is my first time doing magic loop, and actually figured out how to do it because I couldn't understand. Everyone was like, oh, magic loop is so easy, it looks complicated, but it's not. And I was like, maybe you're overestimating my intelligence. But it was actually really easy. Go me. And I was quite thrilled with these, and still am, because like I have quite small hands and like stubby fingers. And so what all of my life wearing gloves or mittens, they've been too long and the finger part like flaps over. But I made these specifically to my hand size, and they fit perfect. Like they're just my hand size, and I love it. And yeah, I really enjoyed making these. They were quite quick. And I had bought with my Christmas money like a wool, like light beige, almost creamy color. Maybe it's called taupe, because it's like a little bit beige, a little bit gray, a little bit cream. Really nice light colored wool coat, like long wool coat. And so I thought, oh, like red mittens will be so cute with this. And then I had another accessory project that I'll talk about because it's still technically in my whips. I don't know if it's going to remain a whip or if it's going to be frogged. Yeah, that I knit in the same yarn to match with this as like a set kind of. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I was quite happy with these. And then the next accessory I made was the Romanticists bandana by Mare Bear Made. And I used, it's one of the recommended yarns. It's Debbie Bliss Eco Baby Cotton, which I'm actually quite a big fan of. The only thing about it is like splitty kind of, but it is like a really nice light soft cotton, being a baby cotton. Yeah, I made this in a few different colors. This is the first one I made for myself, which when I'm trying a new pattern I usually make them for myself, because if it turns out bad then it's for me and nobody else has to put up with that. Yeah, I've made this for several people as gifts already. It's so cute. It's not like so complicated. It's not so easy that it's boring. It's still interesting, but it's not so complicated that you can't like take it with you and knit on it on the go. So it's a great project for on the go because it's small too. But yeah, it's just, I think, a 7-row repeat to do these cute little lace, like diamondy, flowery shapes. And you can customize it by making it bigger or smaller and just doing fewer or more of the repeats. And then it has like I-cord on the one end, like up against, that would be like up against your head. And then these I-cord ties. So yeah, I've made these. I bought like a bunch of different colors of the Debbie Bliss Eco Baby cotton. And this is the one that I kept for myself. So I love this pattern because it works up quite quick. When I wasn't doing anything else, like I had to make a last minute gift for someone and for the next day, and was like, you know what, I'm gonna just knit this as fast as I can, and I did it in a day. So it's not a long project. This one I did over the course of I think a week, but yeah, if you're dedicated, you can make one really fast. So it makes a great last minute gift too. I also have made several pairs of socks too. Few as gifts. But this one I kept for myself, and I splurged on these yarns because I was so excited about them. It's like Long Dog Yarn Co. They made Lord of the Rings colorways. As I mentioned, I love Lord of the Rings so much. And this is the Aragorn tweed. They were like sold out of all of the Lord of the Rings colorways, and they had like a few like individual mistake ones or imperfect ones or whatever, and I bought them. So I have a couple other ones that I haven't made yet. I have Samwise and Gandalf, but this is the Aragorn colorway. And for some reason, there's like either fading on the sole of the sock or I walked in something. I think maybe I walked in something. I've washed these. I don't know why they look that way. Anyway, yeah, I think this might have been my first time using tweed, and I loved it. I love this colorway. I made the socks nice and long, so they fit me perfect. Aragorn, love that guy. Love my Aragorn socks. So the next thing is quite exciting because I made my first test knit. I had applied to a couple other test knits quite early on in my knitting experience. I didn't get the opportunity to make them, but I understand why, because I had not posted anything knitting related on Instagram at all, and I applied through Instagram. I was still a new knitter and didn't have much experience. If I had jumped into doing test knits, they probably would have turned out poorly. So by this point, I was fairly experienced. I was like a year and a half into knitting, had made a whole bunch of other garments, and so this is the Splitting Seasons pullover for Nicole from Thorsten Knits. I think it's Thorsten. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. But it's this beautiful long sleeve, I can't tell if it's in, long sleeved V-neck top. My favorite part, well, it has these so all of the ribbing, it has I-cord around the collar here, but the ribbing for the cuffs and the hem is twisted rib, so it's so nice and neat and tidy. In fact, I must say that an experienced knitter who I met several weeks ago, I was working on this, and she saw my twisted rib, and she said, "Wow, what did she say? Your tension or your stitches are so uniform, and your tension looks so good." And I was like, "Thanks." And she said, "You've only been knitting for a year and a half?" I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh my gosh, no way, that's incredible. Look at this, come look at this." Somebody else, and I was like, "Thank you, wow." This turned out so beautiful. I made the size large, and I kind of want to make another one in cotton. I couldn't get gauge with fingering because it calls for fingering, but I ended up using a sport weight merino. Valley Yarn Superwash Sport Merino in the natural color. So I knew I wanted to make it like white. I just couldn't decide if I wanted to make it in cotton or if I was going to do it in cotton. I was going to use the Debbie Bliss Eco Baby cotton or merino, and because I figured I knew I wanted it to become kind of a bit oversized and drapey so that I could like throw it over like a tank top or something in the evenings of summertime or whatever, wear it in the spring, even the fall, even the winter as like a long sleeve top. But I knew like if I make it in cotton, it might not like blend as well. Like the stitches, I wanted to make it so that the stitches had like a bit of a halo, like the yarn would have a bit of a halo, which this does. It is pilling under the arms a bit. I just put that right up to the camera, didn't I? So I have to de-pill it under the arms, but I'm so pleased with, I decided to make it in merino and for that kind of halo that I was hoping for, and I'll probably make another one in cotton. But my favorite detail about this is the super cute like split sleeves, super cute sleeve split. Like, oh, I love it. And the sleeves are wide, and I'd never done a v-neck before. I like how it turned out, but I might figure out how to add elastic or something into it because it is like going way too wide. That's one thing I wish I could change or might figure out how to do, is adjust the collar because I have a large bust size or larger bust size, and so I find it difficult to wear things that are really low v-necks. if I had a smaller bust size, I think that looks so nice on people with smaller busts because you don't have like cleavage filling up the whole v-neck, or like you can just wear something underneath it or not, and it just comes down low and there's nothing to worry about. I love how that looks. I mean, I don't mean to minimize smaller busted people's problems and say like, oh, there's nothing to worry about, but I know that I could not wear something this low without wearing something underneath. So I do have to wear something underneath this because the collar is like so gaping. So if anything, I'd figure out how to do it smaller, or do like a round neck version so it doesn't go down so low. But yeah, I do really love, I blocked it so that it'd be kind of boxy fitting, because I don't like a hem that's like cinched, like, because this is kind of cropped like waist height, so I don't like a cinched waist garment, I guess, for like a sweater or a shirt. I like it to fit loosely at my waist and kind of boxy, so yeah, I'm so proud of this. I really loved participating in this test knit. It's not released yet, but I think she's hoping to release it sometime in April, because the due date is coming up pretty soon. One of my whips, since writing out my notes, one of my whips has become a finished object, and it's the Easy as ABC sweater by UU Yarns in the 12-month size. It's so tiny and cute. Oh, I have hairs everywhere. I love it. I love how this has turned out. I won't say who it's for because it's for a baby whose parents I have on social media and they don't know that I'm making this. I made it using Cascade 220 Superwash Merino in colors number 1, which is the white, and number 120, which is the like minty seafoam green. Oh, it started raining. I like the pattern. I like how it's really basic and easily customizable. Like I did different stripes than what, and a different collar than what was called for. Actually, yeah, I did 1 by 1 rib for all of the finishings, whereas in the pattern I think it calls for 2 by 2. Yeah, I like how it's easily customizable, but I have to say it's a good thing that I'm really happy with the finished product because I hated working on this. Maybe if I had DPNs in the right size, I wouldn't have hated working on it, but I had to use magic loop for a lot of this, and I found it so fiddly, doing like the color changes and carrying the like vertical floats. Yeah, they're like along here, and you can even tell, I know this is a pretty minor detail, but you can tell that there's like the spacing at the raglan here, and then here there's like no spacing along this one, because that's where I had to like carry all my vertical floats for the stripes. And then for the sleeves, I had to do color changes carrying the the floats along the edge here, while also working in magic loops. So you got the big loops hanging on either side, and trying to keep the tension right in between, like on between the two needles, while also decreasing every several rows. So I found that so fiddly and so annoying to work on. But I do really love the finished product, and it's going to be so cute. Oh, I love how tiny it is. And oh my gosh. Oh, I added, because babies have such big heads and it needs to stretch. I hope it'll be big enough, but I added elastic into the collar so that I can stretch really nice and big. Especially because another time I'd like to try a pattern. I know I've seen them where they have like the buttons along one of the raglans or in a different spot, so that it's easier to put on and take off. And I thought, well, if I can just make it stretchy enough here, it'll be okay. Look at how it folds up. It's so tiny. There's just something so satisfying about this. Ooh, I look like I'm in candlelight. It's getting dimmer and dimmer by the minute, I feel. It's so dark out now. Anyway, just like this satisfying little baby sweater. Very happy with that, how it turned out. Anyway, onto the whips.